I started knitting when I was 8 years old. My earliest memory of knitting is sitting on my back porch in my house in Quincy, Mass, and knitting with my grandmother sitting in a beach chair. And she was knitting and she showed me how to do it. I've always been a maker. I was always interested in making things, projects, anything she could teach me. I was a sponge. My grandmother and I were best friends. I'm like a drunk in a bar at a yarn shop, and my son said to me, "Do you think buying a yarn shop is the best thing for you, Mom?" Because of how crazy I am about yarn. But I've taken an addiction and made it into a business. I like meeting people and sharing my passion. It goes back to my grandmother. She just loved people, and everybody would flock to our house. And when I'm here, I feel like they flock in here like they used to her. It's been my passion, and I love people, and I love knitting, so I put the two things together. And I have no regrets. For the past 30 years, I've been a sweater designer. I love the job. I wouldn't want to do anything else. And I've told my kids, do what you like to do and you never work a day in your life. I started knitting because my grandmother, who was an immigrant from Italy, taught me how to knit and crochet. I started crocheting faster than her, and she got very frustrated and said, "You're way better than I am. What did I do?" And then about 20 years ago, I liked the way knitting looked better than crocheting. So I decided to start knitting and taking it more seriously, and I've been doing it ever since. There's two ways to knit, okay? You have the English style of knitting, which is mostly taught in America, and that is a throwing process. But when you throw the yarn, you move your elbow and you move your shoulder. The way that I was taught to knit was the continental version, because my grandmother was from Italy, and it's mostly the Europeans knit like this. And that is a flicking of your finger. So instead of doing this, you do this. So ergonomically, it's much better for you. Everybody knits differently, but it's the process, and if the stitches are correct and the yarn's going on the needle the way that it should be, then it's good. All of the things I do are covered under what is called the Fiber Arts umbrella, and it's making pretty things with string. And there are different ways to make things. There's a knitting process, there's a crocheting process, or there's a weaving process. And all three are made using yarn, but all three processes are different. I buy the yarn or I react to the yarn, and then I wait for the yarn to kind of speak to me. My cousin calls me the yarn guru because I tend to put really good yarns with certain patterns that work fairly well. So it's more I'm dealing with the process as a palette or as a blank canvas, and then I start to put it all together. The hardest, most complicated thing I've ever knitted is a fisherman's sweater. It's full of different cable twists and Aran stitches. The fishermen of the Aran Isles, their wives would knit them sweaters, and each clan had different cable stitches and patterns, so that when the fisherman died and they found him, they knew who he was by his sweater, because the cables on the sweaters came from that clan. My yarn shop is called Wicked Good Yarns, and I am in Rockland, Massachusetts. My business began 2 years ago. I was teaching at Braintree Community Arts Center, and one of my students walked in and said, "There's a yarn shop in Rockland." I said, "Okay." She gave me the card. I called Judy, and I walked in here. I don't know, I just felt like I was home. And I said to Judy, "So what are you doing?" She said, "I'm retiring. I'm moving to West Virginia." And I said, "Wow, I've always wanted to own a yarn shop." And she said, "I'll sell you everything, lock, stock, and barrel." And I laughed. And I went home. And I said to my husband, "Oh, she told me she'd sell me the business." He said, "Well, what's the rent?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" We came in the very next day. We refinanced the house, and here I am. I'm in the 4th floor artist building on Liberty Street. A lot of people just drive by because I'm not a storefront. I feel like I'm part of the artist community. And there's other artists in here too. There's quilters, there's painters, there's jewelry designers. It's a sense of community. So I don't feel like I'm ever alone here. My favorite thing is classes. I like meeting people and sharing my passion. People are so happy with their progress. And when they make something that they say to me, I can't do it. And I say, no, 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 you can't say can't, because that's the teacher in me. But when it's finished, they're so proud of themselves. It's the best part. There is a stigma about the fiber arts, knitting, crocheting, that only old ladies do it. But because it's a dying art, and we have to keep it going, like sewing, it's any part of those arts that has been dying out over the years, we need to keep them going. Because it also is a sense of community. You learn from people, you meet people, you talk to people, you socialize. I've taught young girls, and they really enjoy it. And it helps the kids to be more social and not so solitary. And most of the kids I have enjoy it, and they come back. And the best part is seeing the light come on their eyes. And they're very proud of themselves, and I'm very proud of them when they get it. The process of fiber arts, either it be weaving, crocheting, or knitting, is a repetition of a stitch or different stitches. So it's very meditative. You get into a zen that you don't even realize you're there. A lot of retired ladies come in to get away from their husbands for a couple of hours. It's a sanctuary. The knitting shop is a sanctuary for people who want to get away from it all and enjoy doing something in the process. The other thing a lot of my students say, even my kids, wow, that went by so fast, when they're here for 2 hours and they don't even realize they're here for 2 hours. And I love hearing that, because then I know they're in the Zen zone of knitting, and that's a good place to be. Some of my ladies will say, you're cheaper than therapy. I consider myself blessed to be making new friends at my age. The sense of community and friendship is just as important to me as knitting and crocheting. We're all friends. I've got a sign over there that says, we come in as strangers but leave as friends. And that's what I want people to feel.